And welcome to this week's episode of the Dr. Tech Show and Tech Talk on Hope Radio, where myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and occasional guests guide you through the world of online communications in a show where we talk tech, a show which was the brainchild of the late great internet evangelist John Popham. And in usual fashion, we ask, how's the weather where you are? Sweyn, how's the weather where you are?
The weather here is raining cats and dogs, but Happy New Year anyway.
Happy New Year as well from us in Birmingham, where on New Year's Eve we went out to see the neighbours and sang Auld Lang Syne in very traditional fashion. We have one Scottish neighbour, but I think everybody's adopted that as an anthem for the new year, haven't they, Sweyn? They do
I
that
think
where
they
you
have.
live.
There's a very good episode of the Radio 4 programme Soul Music dedicated to Auld Lang Syne. So I'm looking for on there.
A whole programme.
Well, it tells about the history of the song and how it's evolved, how its use has evolved through the ages.
That sounds
so half
good.
an hour programme on that.
Yeah.
There's lots of other pieces of music available in that format as well. Soul music, it's called.
Yeah, I was looking up the words on New Year's Eve, and they vary. There are various variations on it.
There's
A little
several
bit.
verses at least. I'm not completely confused by the time anybody's in a mood to sing the song.
Yes, well, the neighbours came out, and that was really
That's
nice to
great.
see.
No.
Yeah, two roads, so that was good.
In Orkney, we had a local radio program, very local to us. Used to just broadcast about an hour and a half a day, but decided to, since nobody could go out wishing each other Happy New Year after the bells, decided to broadcast from 10 p.m. onwards into the new year, and it was very well, very well done. They had an outside broadcast to have the bells of St Magnus Cathedral ringing and a piper at New Year, so it was all on the radio here.
That sounds great. And some of our in our area, some of our neighbours and other people we don't know were setting up fireworks, including until about 2 o'clock in the morning, which
lovely.
wasn't ideal, but earlier on it was fine, and there was some nice, interesting in the park across the road from us. Someone set off a Catherine wheel. Now I wasn't sure Catherine wheels were still legal currency, shall we say, but they attached it to a tree, I think, and just went for it. But they did some other nice fireworks as well.
There's a few fireworks here as well, but generally speaking, everyone was either indoors phoning each other or on Zoom, or I think the Zoom servers and all the similar servers must have taken quite a battering from about 11:30 till about 2 in the morning.
Yeah, I was trying TweetDeck about 11:30, and it just kind of ground to a halt. So I don't know whoever else is using TweetDeck at that time of the night. But anyway, yes, it was quite a busy time. So there are other things we're celebrating around this time of year, and I picked one up that is one that I I usually organise a face-to-face celebration for, which is known as Women's Christmas or Little Christmas, on the 6th of January, Wednesday, 6th of January, and it was known in Ireland as Nullignaman, as or Women's Christmas, as I say, or Little Christmas. And the story behind it is that as a reward for their hard work over the Christmas season, it was a day off from all housework for women, and traditional roles were supposed to be reversed in the home. Men did the so-called women's work, apostrophes, in the house, while women rested and gathered together informally. So the custom was that women made social calls to the homes of their friends and neighbours and enjoyed tea and the last of their Christmas cake. Women's Christmas was well known in some areas of Ireland, such as Cork and Kerry, with some in other regions professing to have never heard of it. By the mid-20th century, tradition had largely died out, but it is slowly undergoing a revival. And I think a lot of hospitality establishments in Ireland, in various parts of the country, are doing it. We're doing events, obviously not at the moment, to celebrate Women's Christmas, and I'd love to see a revival of it in Birmingham. I have been organising a Women's Christmas event for Irish women and women of Irish descent for the last about 10 years, gathering in a local pub such as the Spotted Dog, which is closed at the moment, and more recently in a cafe in the Jewellery Quarter called Coffee Tales, where myself and a friend of mine, Louise Kilbride, organised a musical event to celebrate Women's Christmas, and we get a nice little turnout. So I'm sorry we can't do that this year, but hopefully next year we'll be able to get that again. I understand as well from reading in Wikipedia, in the Scottish Highlands, the term Little Christmas or Nollaig Beag is applied to New Year's Day, also known as Lá Chalún or Lá na Blina Ura, while Epiphany, the 6th of January, is known as Láil na Rí, the feast day of the kings. Did you know that, Sweyn?
No, I'm not very well plugged into the kind of Highland and Gaelic culture that there is around. Well, rightly or wrongly, the Northern Isles see themselves as a bit separate from that, a bit more Nordic than
Right.
Gaelic or Celtic. But no, Twelfth Night's a fascinating thing with its connections with the change of calendar for the lost 11 days, and also I learned this year on the radio, where I learn most things in my life. That apparently Christmas cake, first of all, used to be a thing that you had at Twelfth Night. It's called, I can't remember, Twelfth Night cake or something, 12th cake or something it's called. So it's interesting to hear this tradition of Little Christmas happening then as well.
Mm.
And the suggestion was that when when society became more industrialized, the powers that be wanted to shorten Christmas, and gradually Christmas cake became the 12th night cake became Christmas cake to kind of shorten the mayhem.
Reel it back in. Yeah. Yeah, my brother this year was the one who made Christmas
Am I
puddings and
sharing the
Christmas
right thing,
cake.
Pauline?
Yeah,
You've
yeah,
got
that's the one. Yeah,
your
on
finger finger
RTE,
there.
which is the Irish
Good. Well,
national
I'll stop sharing that
broadcaster.
one now.
Yeah. I was just saying my older brother was the one who made Christmas cakes and Christmas pudding this year. My mother decided she had enough of it,
Oh, good for
and
her.
so my brother made it. But there was technology involved because they were in regular contact.
There was advice given.
Advice was given,
Oh, excellent. Excellent. I hope they
and
recorded that. I hope they recorded that.
well, there was, I don't know about recording, but there was demonstrations live on Zoom and
Excellent.
other channels, um, with my mother saying, "No, don't stir it that way. Stir it this way, and add this much and add that much." And I think in some traditions they inject alcohol, shock
Mm-hmm.
horror,
Mm-hmm.
into the
Mm-hmm.
contents. I don't know if that happened this time, but my mother, my brother did come down to see my mother for New Year, and the
Good.
pudding was consumed and very
Excellent.
reported on, very very good.
Very
So it's good to
important.
be carrying on those, handing on those family traditions. We did try to get my brother to, as my mother used to do, make Christmas puddings for each of us, each of the five of us. But
But
for
no
some
chance.
reason,
Ah.
no, he declined.
Does he have children himself?
He has two children and a
So maybe
grandchild.
he'll have to make Christmas puddings for them then. Maybe that's how it's going to work.
That's a possibility. I'll certainly put that into the family call when we do it again soon. Yeah.
Because if everyone was to make a Christmas pudding for everyone in every generation, as the generations went down, that might get out of hand about the great grandparent time.
Possibly. Yeah. Anyway, we'll keep an eye on that. So I thought for the first program of 2021, as it is, we would have a look back at some of the guests that we've had over the last, not from the beginning probably, but from the early days anyway of the program, which started in May last year with our old friend John Popham, sadly not with us anymore. And one of the first ones that I was able to pick out was Jason Holloway, who was the managing director at Bridgeway and founder of the Phones for Patients initiative. And this was an initiative where they had requested devices to provide hospital patients, and I think people possibly in care homes as well, with access to phones to communicate with loved ones during the COVID-19 lockdown. And they set out to distribute thousands of securely repurposed phones under the Phones for Patients initiative. And at the time when we interviewed Jason, they had received almost 4,000 devices, and in fact, we had an update on the program of over 8,000 devices. So that seemed to us like a great initiative.
It sure
I don't know
was.
if there's any. I don't know if there's any update on that website. Sweyn.
Now, had I prepared correctly for this program, I'd have checked that.
Well, I think it still is
No,
viable, obviously,
yes, it's
and
still
still,
ongoing.
yeah. I don't
Oh,
think
there
it.
we are.
Oh, there we are.
Mobile
Eight
devices.
and a half
Oh, here's
thousand.
coffee as well. That might help.
Oh,
Thank you very
instant.
much.
Excellent.
8,514 for radio listeners. That's
Yeah,
the devices so far.
some
They've
very
moved up. They've
very
made some
happy.
progress even since we spoke to them.
Yeah, some very happy recipients there. And the other thing that Jason talked about was not just devices, but chargers. As John remarked when he went into when he went into the hospital, in that when he was around for the program. It's all very well going having a device in hospital, but then if it runs out of charge, and if you go into hospital unexpectedly, as some people do, then you may not have a charger or cables or whatever. So, or they may get lost or whatever. So I think donations of chargers were equally welcome.
Yes, I don't think John was ever in his illness suddenly admitted to hospital, but
No.
you have to feel slightly sorry for the ward power supplies, given the number of devices that John took into his hospital stays. I think he was having a competition with himself to see if he could take one more each time.
Well, one time he
And
did
good for
have
him.
that
Desperate to test them, even in that situation.
yeah, he had that what do you call that MiFi device, that Huawei
Huawei
one.
5G thing, yes.
That's right. That somebody that a company gave him to test out, and I think he found that useful,
I think so.
because I think in the early days, and John was very keen to get free Wi-Fi in hospitals, wasn't he? In
That's
the
right. He
early
was one of
days
the
of
he was one of the main drivers behind that, and he was on the national program in England, I should say, to make it happen, which it by and large I think now has.
yeah, yeah. Well, not before time. I mean, have said before on the program, John was before his time in a lot of
Mm.
instances, recommending Wi-Fi here, there, and everywhere, and certainly in
No, hospital
hospitals
Wi-Fi was
now.
one of his big campaigns that really did go places.
Mm, yeah. So hopefully that will continue to grow in not just hospitals, but also care homes and anywhere where people would be a bit more isolated anyway. But as we have said as well countless times in the program now, universal Wi-Fi, it just doesn't make sense not to be able to have access to the Wi-Fi.
Of a standard
Wi-Fi.
which facilitates interactive video.
Mm,
That's the standard that you need. So there
yeah,
needs to be adequate devices, data, and skills for everybody to be able to talk to each other like we're talking to each other now,
yeah.
or would be if I stopped sharing the screen, which I've done now. Uh, that is still not available to a huge swathe of people, either because they don't have the connectivity where they live, or there's no 4G, or there's no 4G, or they can't afford to pay for the data, or they don't know how to access affordable data, or they think they don't want to, or genuinely don't want to, or haven't been introduced to how to uh,
Mm,
actually get access to the rest of the world, even if they can't walk about, or even if they can't travel too far. And there's times in all of our lives, I think, when that applies to us, when for one reason or another we're stuck in one place. And if we know how to get in touch with our friends and our family electronically, digitally, online, then it just makes those periods, for most people anyway. No doubt some people are pleased with the break, but that's not me.
mm,
It just makes those periods so much more bearable and so much more less negative in their effects.
yeah. So for anyone who's listening to the show, and if you have been able to help somebody get online in the last year or so, we'd love to hear from you. Even if you want to just come on the show briefly and tell us your story, whether you're a tutor of some sort or a digital champion. Have you become a digital champion this year? Or you've been one for a while and seen an increase in demand for your services, or if you're a neighbour who's helped somebody to get online in a way that's really been really useful this year, we'd love to hear from you. We'd also love to hear from you if, as in one of the more recent shows, we talked about failure. If you've tried something and it hasn't worked, maybe we can find a solution or just hear about what you tried, because we learn from failure as well as from success. And
Got a
it's
long
sometimes
list of
harder to
those
talk
things
about.
of my own for quiet programs.
Maybe we'll
I
devote
should
another
just
program to that.
before we move on from phones for patients, I should just say there is a donate button there. There's details about how you can donate devices, or indeed cash, or indeed chargers and cables to that project. There's on the website phonesforpatients.uk.
That's number four, isn't it? Phones number four for patients.
Oh, it's FOR. It's phones
Oh, it's four.
FOR
Okay,
patients.
okay,
Yeah.
great. So another guest was Paul Clayton, who was an IT trainer and tutor working with people on the edge of accessibility. Paul has working experience as a teacher, a salesperson, internet technical support analyst, art worker, and factory worker, and other roles in a variety of service industries. And his community engagement skills were forged working with art groups in West Sussex and Southeast London. And I think Paul was another friend of John's who came on the show 2 or 3 times to talk about working with directly with people, helping them to get online. And I think one of his uh, pieces of advice, which I see still on his website, is about encouraging people to have a notebook to hand. It's fine
Oh,
to
that's
have
right. Yes.
devices and all the trickery and gadgetry and stuff, but you can't beat just a pencil, a piece of paper and a pen where you write down your thoughts or even or draw diagrams. That was the other thing I think you recommended, where you can start to think about your connectivity or your what you need or what you might not need or questions that you might want to ask. And I think sometimes people are afraid to ask questions because they think, well, that's a stupid question. But we're all learning all the time,
There's
and
no stupid questions. That's
no,
the first rule of online stuff is there's no stupid questions.
yeah, absolutely. And we've all
I should get myself a notebook, I've decided, because every back of every envelope that's ever arrived in this house over the last year is by my desk, and it's all a complete mess. When also sitting next to me is the wonderful GovCamp North notebook, which has lots of space for even diagrams and notes and all sorts of things.
excellent. Yeah,
Completely untouched.
I've started printing off the playlist for our show because it's good to have a piece of paper as well and write notes. And I've got some notes from a show we had with Shirley Ayers, so we'll come back on to her in a few minutes as well.
Because of course we had the great one of our shows coincided with the great Google failure, didn't it, on Monday?
Oh
Well, a couple of
yes,
weeks ago,
yes.
when we couldn't log into YouTube and we couldn't get access to our document, well, what do you call it? What do you call those things in a radio show, Pauline? The script? Would that
Playlist
do?
script.
Not
Yeah,
quite a script.
script.
Not scripted as such, but it's a list of things we're going to talk about and all that to the website. So my goodness, even Google can fail. So paper does have its part to play.
Yeah.
But I think the idea of having a notebook, which if you put sensitive stuff like passwords or anything like that in that notebook, you need to be careful of where you take it and how you safeguard it. But it's a great idea to have, and one day I will get one for myself.
Well, I think we should have this year. We should certainly have Paul back on again to talk about what else he's been learning and teaching people, because Paul is very much like us, starting where the person is at and not trying to say to them, here's a load of gobbledygook. It's kind of, what do you want to do? As we and John always encourage people to start from what they're interested in, if it's cricket or music or show bands or whatever. We can certainly find a link for them online that'll help them to for the online to be useful to them. So one of the other guests after Paul was Bobby Robson, who was a woman who started a program during lockdown called Be More Digital, supporting mainly small charities and organisations with incomes of much less than £1 million, doing incredible work to support beneficiaries in the communities to make the most of technology and digital product techniques. She helps them to improve access to support for the beneficiaries and other supporter and donor processes to increase retention and support the value. And she's also a digital and communications trustee, well, she was at the time, at To Make It. And Bobby, in fact, when she finished, being a guest for us, she started her own online program, interviewing people. I think she's called Buddies or something like that, on Buddies with Bobby or something like that. And I think she's helping more and more people, and she does advertise her sessions on Buddy Chats. There we go on that list. Um, Sweyn's just bringing up on the screen Bobby's website. Be more dot digital, is it?
Be more dot digital, all
Yeah.
spelled out as words, no
Mm.
contractions.
Um, just encouraging people to along their journey, and again doing a lot of hand holding, like a lot of our guests are. Um, and she was offering some Q&As with people to just answer the questions online as well. A bit like what we are doing. Um,
One thing I really liked on her site is her monthly pay as you can
mm,
event for charity people, so that even if you don't want to commit yourself to the 6 week course or to a structured service, paid for service, that you can get an introduction into what she's all about and how she could potentially help at very low cost.
hmm
And I
yeah,
think that monthly event is definitely something that's interesting and quite unusual. I'm not aware. I mean, others must do that, but I've not seen too many.
mm. And we also had as guests Chris Ashworth from Nominet and Ross McCullough from Third Sector Lab talking about Reboot, which is that was then a new interactive platform which helps communities reduce the digital divide between the connected and the unconnected. And this was one that I was particularly interested in because I'm involved in some similar kind of schemes in the Midlands where people are trying to get more people online by repurposing devices that they may not be, they're just kind of in a drawer somewhere. And I think the great thing about the Reboot project, is that it offers a playbook for organizations who want to start such a project. So it means that people wouldn't have to go through all the kind of torturous discovery phases for projects like this. Having a playbook means that you can start a project very quickly, because it talks you through the steps that you would need to take to get people organized, to get people to volunteer their unused equipment. And they also have a Facebook page where they're encouraging the kind of the community to be built up. So if you look at if you look at the Facebook, the community link on that screen, Sweyn, I think it links to the Facebook, the Facebook
It's a Facebook group,
link. Yeah, and they
which
have a
I
directory of people who are interested in starting Facebook projects. I think they're concentrating on certain areas in the country at the moment, but I think the more people who want to get involved, the better. And again, like many of the other Facebook groups that we talked about from time to time, this is for people to help, people involved in projects like this to help other people. Um, so it'll be good to keep an eye on that.
of all the things we've covered, I think this is in my top three. This project, both because it's such fundamentally a good idea, and also because of the kind of playbook style of it, so that others can pick it up and adapt it to their own circumstances, but keep the principles. The important principles are there that you might not necessarily all think through
Yeah,
in all places that want to do this. But anybody could pick up the basic uh, the basic playbook and download the free guide
yeah,
and start to try to do this. It's definitely on my list of things to try and see whether I can get something going locally on this one, because I
yeah,
think it's a fantastic um, uh, initiative. Although having said that, actually the market for reconditioned laptops, devices, and other things here is quite good. There's a couple of really good local repair shops who will take the time. Each of their owners probably has a garage full of junk to everybody else, but you can always rely on them to find the broken fan or whatever. And equally, they are very good at recycling into the community at very affordable prices, devices which people have moved on from.
I think my take on the Reboot project is that they would hope that companies maybe who, would be getting rid of, bulk loads of devices would, instead of trying to resell them, because that would take a lot of time and effort for them, would give them to a project that was setting up locally to help people in the area. It's good corporate social responsibility, and it's just a good thing to do for their area. Good for them to get a reputation of an organization that does that sort of thing. So I think
It would also be good
that
to
would be
see
more
local
it.
authorities as part of their reuse and recycle activities, perhaps consider either setting something up themselves, maybe less likely, or supporting uh, initiatives like this by channeling electronic devices which are discarded, just in case there are any
Mm,
that can be used in this way, rather than being
yeah,
sent somewhere unknown to get an unknown level of recycled gold and platinum, molybdenum, and whatever else is in them back,
yeah.
which recycles an order of magnitude less sustainable than reuse. So let's reuse them.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think, oh yeah, what I'd like to have in 2021, if we're compiling wish list of guests, is to have somebody on who's actually, undertaken this project and started, use the playbook and see how it's used, because that way we can develop the community for who are following this guide. Um, and both Chris and Ross did say, people don't have to follow the guide, letter to the letter. They can adapt parts of it to suit their local circumstances.
That's
So,
key. That's the key thing that makes this so attractive to me,
mm,
is that it's general advice, it's practical advice, but it's also open to being adapted, as you say, for individual circumstances.
yeah. And I think encouraging people to help each other, people who are starting on these projects, to help each other, openly, is very much along our values as well, to be transparent and to be cooperative and collaborative in the work that we're doing. Okay, so one of our uh, other guests during the year was Helen Reynolds, who came on after, I think, soon after John had unfortunately passed away. And Helen is a social media marketing awards winning creative trainer who designs unique training and coaching programs. She's an experienced keynote conference speaker, chair, and workshop host, and has spoken at hundreds of high profile events all over the world and online, including Social Day in London, NATO's social media conference in Podgorica, and Comms Hero in Cardiff, Manchester, and London. Helen first started using social media when she was a communications officer in local government, and then she built a business helping comms teams tackle the problems she had faced as a comms and digital team leader. And this was, Helen was one of John's buddies, and I think John often and attended events that Helen organised, and they were kind of comms heroes together, really.
They were.
In the early days of social media, I think they kind of knew each other and had a lot to do with each other. So
Helen
it was
was
great
one
to
of
have
the
Helen
great
on.
Helen was one of the great local government pioneers for social media. She really was. There's a famous video clip somewhere on the internet of her explaining in about 2011 how she had. It was a Welsh local authority. I can't remember which one it was. Was it Monmouthshire, maybe? I can't remember. About how she'd gradually encouraged her colleagues to start to use social media for engaging with their service users or their public or whatever. And it's one of the great quotes from around that time was, "And the sky didn't fall on our heads." Just do it. Give it a go. See what happens, and the sky won't fall on our heads. Now, I think in comms circles, things have become a bit more organized and a bit more proceduralized, and I don't think I think some organizations would not quite favor that approach in this day, at this point. But certainly in the early, more naive days of social media, it was great to see someone saying, look, this isn't too complicated. You just need to bear these few things in mind and get on with it. And it's no surprise to me that John and she got on very well and worked together at times. because well, just look at her Comms Creatives Facebook page. I mean, it's great fun apart from anything else.
Yeah.
But it's very useful, obviously. But oh, I'm getting
Oops. You're getting your
messages.
messages.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Tom. So yeah, Helen, she was great too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to be able to have fun with this. And I really like talking to people who were kind of, it feels very sort of, in Ireland we say a chón, you sort of, for though, a long time ago. But, as we remind ourselves, the internet only started in 1990s.
Right.
But people who were involved in the early days, it's good to hear, it's really good to hear
Mm.
those stories. And I love having people on who kind of got started back then, and also people who are getting started now, because some people are still finding things that we take for granted, and it's good to hear their stories, and their questions as well, about what is kind of mysterious to them, and again, encouraging people to kind of contact the show and ask us questions and ask us to feature certain things. We're pretty good at getting guests on, so if there's anybody who wants to come on, or you want to us to approach to be a guest, then please ask so we can approach them in 2021. And then another very interesting guest was Ruth, the OT that Sweyn, you, a friend of
Oh
yours, who
yes, my
came
friend
on,
Ruth, who's an
and
OT in Orkney.
that
Yeah.
was fabulous. Ruth joined us from her holidays in a windswept,
That's right.
was it caravan or tent? I can't remember which.
It was a
Um,
caravan or a
yeah,
van of some sort.
yeah, and you tell more. You say no more
Well,
about
Ruth's
Ruth than
been
I do, Sweyn.
I've known Ruth for many, many years. She's been a practicing occupational therapist, or OT as we call them, in the community in Orkney and in the Isle of Man, and probably one or two other places that I don't know about. And it just seemed to me that she'd be a good. What occupational therapists do is they help people who are struggling in life for whatever reason do more things, be more active, be more interested in things, and they give them they offer strategies or tools or adaptations to their homes or whatever that make overcome the barriers for people to get on with and enjoy the things or benefit from the things that are in their lives. And it just seemed to me that actually the digital inclusion work that we're focusing on here is a kind of a special case of that. It's OT work to me is kind of a generalization of overcoming digital exclusion, because it's overcoming barriers to doing, well, anything in your life that you want to do or that you should be able to do. And she was very interesting. She had her reservations about some of the big tech solutions to things. She was very realistic about how enthusiastic some people at least are about, or aren't, about going online unless there's something very specific that they want to achieve, which is a theme that we've come back to again and again. Don't try to make people digital. Try to let them natter to their friends using a tool that might or might not be digital, which would be John's approach, and absolutely said. And just searching this morning in my extensive research for this program, I have, as you may have, if you're not watching on the radio, you might see I'm not at times paying very much attention to what Pauline's saying, because I'm desperately trying to find the next website to share for our YouTube viewers. And speaking and doing this at the same time is stupid, but there we are. I've done it. I found this today, which I'm going to pass on to Ruthie because she hasn't seen it. And this is online therapy activities for an occupational therapist. There's a whole list of stuff that is linked to from this blog post. I don't even know who it's by or where it is or anything. I meant to put Scotland in my search, but I didn't. So things like handwriting and keyboarding. Oh, there's a good one. After thorough research, this person found that two common misconceptions: one, that learning to type is easy, that's a misconception, and two, that students that have difficulty with handwriting will learn to type easily. That's another myth, apparently. So there we go. I learned to type while at school to get out of having to play rugby. I have to admit, it was a short. Didn't mind playing out certain other sports.
One way.
Couldn't be doing the rugby, so I signed on to the business studies short course instead, and I'm very glad I did, because it's possibly the thing I learned at school that I use most to this very day. So there's other stuff there from a professional OT point of view. And again, I can't even tell whether this is the UK or no. This is an American site. So
.com. Is it .com?
it is
Electronic-therapy.com.
electronic-therapy.com, and I can tell by the phone numbers actually now that it is
Yeah.
American.
Yeah.
But and I think OT does have some national contextual differences from one society to another. I think that's the case. I might
But
have
we
made that
do
up, but I
find,
think
don't we, that things that start in the US usually come here, or
yeah,
the gap between starting in one country and coming to another is much closer now. But yeah, that's I really enjoyed listening to Ruth, because she has a
she's so
she had a very
enthusiastic.
practical approach.
Yes,
Yeah, don't force people, and go where they are, which is
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, no, we'd like to have Ruth back again, or another OT if Ruth's not available. And after that, we had Claire White, who's the Area Education Manager and West Midlands Digital Coordinator for the WEA. And Claire is a manager with a passion for connecting communities and reducing barriers for people. And she's currently, and was then, when she was on the show, developing a new program of flexible blended learning modules that address skills barriers informed by behavioural research, and contributing to the business development targets of WEA, and undertaking an MBA in educational leadership at Anglia Ruskin. And again, Claire was somebody who knew John down through the years, and I think she would consider herself an early adopter of tech and social media. And as we've said so often on this program, social media was where people kind of met each other, kind of online, and then eventually face to face at events. And for me, it was always interesting to meet people face to face that I'd first met online. Um, uh, Not always the same, people, you kind of sometimes made an assumption about people's personalities. And I mean, I myself, now I have people coming up to me saying, "Oh, I follow you," and kind of, you don't always know what to say after that. But hopefully I say something like, "Well, I hope you found I said something useful or funny," or because there's nothing worse than just broadcasting and having no responses. I've been developing my Facebook responses over the Christmas holidays, kind of, and actually responding to people, because I often, people say something and then I don't respond, and they think I don't know what they think. But anyway, I try to be more conscious in my responses
Do you remember the
now.
campaign that ran a few years ago to try to persuade people not to use the like button, but to make a comment instead, because something to do with the algorithm or something?
Yes,
And that's kind of
yes,
stuck with me since then. I didn't really agree with everything about that campaign, but it does. On the one hand, at least if you like or otherwise emote the response to a Facebook post, then at least the person who's posted it knows you've noticed it and all that stuff. But if they catch loop, but it's always much better to try and make a comment on anything that actually interests you than to do that, I think. So yeah. There's another. I'm trying to write down some resolutions for the show here, and on my notebook. First one is write in this notebook, not on the back of that envelope.
That sounds like a very good resolution for all of us to learn from. Another guest we had on was Andy Sanford, who is the Director of Improvement at We Are Lean and Agile. And Andy, I don't think either of us were expecting Andy to have so much contact with the voluntary sector, but he certainly did. He had worked in.
I almost forgot the feeling he was surprised he had so much contact as he described it, but it was great.
Yeah, he had helped was it Taunton, a group in Taunton set up an online advice group of some, a network of groups that was still going. In fact, I think you found it, Sweyn, on the internet.
That's
while
right.
we were talking. And Andy, kind of, his kind of aim in life, I think, is to encourage others to make continuous improvement and to make it easier for them to make continuous improvement. And he mostly works, I think, with the local authorities now, but he has a platform that provides a tool to help organizations map, model, and improve their processes continuously. saving time for analysts and helping to understand process costs, identify and quantify benefits of change, and understand business cases. So I think, he
There he
would
is.
be definitely more, yeah. Oh, right. Okay, great to see him there. Definitely more on the local authority side of things, but I think somebody who, as we say, has worked with the voluntary sector and kind of saw the benefits of working um, cross sector to help people in the community. I think he would be, and he is keen to kind of offer get more involved in our in the kind of non-profit sector, which is my sector.
He's very
Um,
collaborative as well. He's
yeah,
one of the good people. One of the good people. Like John, always happy to have a chat with anybody who's thinking about something and compare ideas, learn from them himself, obviously, but also contribute to what's going on. And
yeah.
he's a very enthusiastic proponent of the online event tool called Remo, REMO, which he will, I'm sure, be able to tell us all about again one day when we have him
Mm,
back.
yeah. Yeah, I'd like to
It's all about
pursue his
networking
offer.
and keeping things small and focused in his outlook.
Yeah, I think we haven't pursued it at the moment because I'm not clear, I think myself, what the benefits would be to kind of people just getting started or getting online for the first time. But I'm sure we'll have more conversations with Andy and kind of understand that better and bring it back if we think it would be useful. So I'll get another guest after Andy was Rachel Connellisk, who is the director of Creative and Active Lives in the Midlands, Smethwick and Sandwell mostly, I think. And she calls herself a bubbleologist, which was a new thing for us, a circus skills instructor, hula hooper, data analyst, and web designer, which brings us more back to the kind of things we're familiar with here. Um, Rachel was the founder and director of Spinsonic Arts and Creative Active Lives CIC and a board member of Active Black Country. She calls herself a hula hooping data nerd, expert at breaking down physical, creative, and digital skills into step-by-step, easy-to-follow instructions, upskilling adults and children, and increasing happiness levels all round. Well, I think if you wanted an ambition in your life, I think increasing happiness levels sounds like a great one to have. And Rachel certainly brought a lot of happiness to us when she appeared on the show. Um, I've seen her. I'm friends with her on Facebook as well, and we both take part in a local, well, a group in the Midlands called Sandwell Networkers Group, which brings together up to 500 local people and groups in the Sandwell area. Yeah, we've got Creative Active Lives on screen now. Thanks, Sweyn. Um, and
Creativeactivelives.org.uk.
yeah, and Rachel's son Sam is also a bit of an entrepreneur now, and he has created things that are for sale on their website. Um, but Rachel certainly brings a lot of joy to events when we can do them in kind of in real life, and online. I think she's just really made the most of lockdowns and developed her website and other offers. And in fact, is helping other people as well. She, in spite of being a kind of a micro business herself, she has offered made a small grant available to somebody else to get started and offered them mentoring support as well. So Rachel's one of those people like ourselves and John who gave back and gives back a lot in spite of not having a huge budget herself. She certainly has given a lot of her time and effort and finance, which is great to hear. It's the kind of person we want to hear more of.
She reminded me of the group of women business people that we had, or business women, I should say, we had on much earlier in the show. Were they based in Birmingham or the West
No, they were
Midlands?
in Lancashire, I think.
Lancashire, that's right. And
Jane Bunyan. Jane, is
that's
it
right.
Bunyan?
Yes, yes. You're going to ask me names now. Oh dear. But it was a fabulous episode that I thought, because there was just so many people, and Rachel was very similar to them, who simply heard about lockdown one day, and the next day they were working out how to adapt and pivot their activities, their businesses, their charity work, whatever, online. And there's been with some fantastic results and some really interesting, well, not exactly innovative in the sense of making the most of what we already know about and using it in a different way. inventing things. They were innovating their own approach to their business or their other activities. And I found, again, that was another of our programs that's in my top three. We'll have to do a top. I'll have to overcome my fear of editing and edit some bits and pieces together for a retrospective. That would be what to do, wouldn't it?
Yes, I
Maybe
don't think
next
I've
year.
got her name right yet, but we will come back to it when we remember. It's embarrassing, isn't it, when you don't remember? But these things happen. We make mistakes on here as well. I'm
We
kind
certainly do.
of frantically scrolling through my list of contacts, and I still can't find her. Anyway,
Oh,
we will come back to that. No,
I tried scrolling through our
yeah, if you
program master document.
stop sharing your
Oh,
screen,
stop sharing
Sweyn, I
that.
think that'd be a good idea.
Nothing very private in it, I don't think. Anyway,
No,
but it's off the bottom of this one. It's on version 1 of that document, not this version. And I'll never find my place again.
Anyway, yes, Jane and her group were fascinating, including that woman who was helping people to make their wills.
Yes.
And getting people to helping people to make develop their electronic signatures.
That's right.
So it's been fascinating to hear, and people teaching people yoga, talking
There was a
about
dance studio that had gone
yeah,
completely online and was doing all their dance lessons by video of some sort, Zoom, I think.
yeah. And we heard about some failures there where the technology crashed and people just laughed and started over again, which is great, because that's what we want. That's what we want. We don't want people to be afraid of technology. We want them to feel like that's okay. You can't break the internet. No matter what people say that they broke the internet, you can't break the internet. You probably can't
that
break
was
your
a joke
technology.
on the IT crowd. That was not reality. You cannot break the internet. The internet does not live in a box on somebody's desk either. Or so I've been told.
You could damage your equipment if you pour water into it or drinks or any kind of like that, or you kind of get it wet, or that's probably not a good
We've had an
idea.
example of that this year. We've had an
Did you?
example of that this year. We were Zooming with family members on Christmas Day, and my partner was using her phone as an extra connection so that we could follow the cat around and show the cats to the kids. Seemed to be the main attraction of the whole episode. Anyway, what should happen? But she dropped it in the dog's water bowl.
Oh no!
And well, we're still hoping it might dry out.
What did you try?
We weren't immediately particularly sensible given all the hijinks on Christmas Day, but it's currently with an expert to try and extract the photos for the last few months which hadn't been backed up to Google Play or wherever they're supposed to go. So we're still hoping.
Okay.
Two tips from this. So here's my first story of I feel personally responsible since I'm supposed to know about these things and I could advise my partner if nobody else. Make sure your photos are being backed up to somewhere online. Just do it. If it costs you $1.99 a month, pay it. Just do that automatically. iPhone, Android, they both can do that. And the other thing is very important. Do not drop your phone in your pet's water bowl. Easy.
But the pet wasn't too impressed either.
Well, the phone was in the water for less than 5 seconds. I don't think the pets noticed, but yeah, it certainly didn't do the phone any good at all.
Yeah. Yes, we don't recommend mixing liquids and technology. That is probably a very good thing to say. And but otherwise,
unless they're off and it's just water and you let them dry out before you switch them on.
Yeah,
that works.
That thing about putting your device into a bowl of rice or a bag of rice, is that
complete myth? Complete myth. What happens there is that people think it works because they leave the device switched off for ages. It's nothing to do with the rice. Absolutely not. Look it up. It's been completely discredited. What can happen, however, if you put your phone in a bag of rice, is that the rice can get into the phone and make the worst situation worse. It can get in the audio jack or the power socket thing. Any little crevice in your device. If you put it into rice, the rice will get into the device, and then you've got another problem. No, it doesn't work.
Okay. Forget the rice. Don't do
Forget
the
the
rice thing.
rice. No,
Yeah.
don't do the rice. Can only make things worse.
Or any other comestibles. Don't
Because what
put your
happens
phone
then?
into food.
No, don't put your phone into anything except your pocket if you really must. The thing about why people think that the rice works is because they switch the device off, and a certain proportion of the time, if you switch the device off and let it dry out properly for days, then when you switch it back on, it might work
Mm,
or it might not. But it's confirmation bias with the rice because people think that because they've done something, it's worked.
yes.
I
Yes.
can't point
Okay.
to a peer-reviewed paper to prove this, but it's widely available advice online from reputable sources.
Okay. So back to some of our guests before we finish the program. I don't think we're going to get through all our guests today, but that means we'll have more to go back to next week's show.
Yes.
But another guest, which we both found very fascinating, was Paul Russell, who came on to talk about Citizen Sim, and this was from a story that John actually saw on YouTube, a short video that Paul had made, and Paul's concern is that data poverty in the UK is accelerating as a result of the pandemic and causing social mobility issues across society, from children not being able to get sustainable access to online learning, care leavers not being able to use digital services to get access to support and resources, ex-offenders returning to society unable to rejoin everyday life to those suddenly unemployed, unable to afford data, and the elderly unable to be connected to family and loved ones. And Paul's project, it's not out there yet, but he would like to see it, is that people who have excess data on in their data packages would donate it to those who need data, other people who don't have data or who need more data. And that would be schools and community groups and individuals who are in need. And I know Paul was talking to everybody who would listen to him really about this, including people in DCMS and other organisations around the country. I'm not sure that I know he's still talking about it because I've been in touch with him on LinkedIn, but I don't think he has been able to um, progress it as much as it needs to yet. But he certainly is creating a groundswell, I think, of people who are convinced about the idea. Um, and we were certainly very keen on it, weren't we, Sweyn? We thought it was a great
Again,
idea.
this is. I better not say any. This is. I'll just better say this is the third of my top three.
Uh-huh.
There'll be a fourth and a fifth. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yes, fantastic idea. Just needs a bit of. It needs somebody with. Well, Paul's quite very well connected in the kind of IT industry. I think he works for IBM. I might be
IBM,
wrong.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this is very much a private project of his own that
Mm-hmm.
he's promoting it himself as an individual.
Yeah.
It just needs somebody with the right sort of approach and the right connections within the telecoms companies to
Yeah.
really take it on and try and make it go somewhere. There's quite a few questions to answer about how it would work and what the business model would like, but Paul was very upfront about that and was basically saying that's true. Let's find out what they are and address them.
Yeah.
And
I
his
think
approach
that,
is really refreshing, and it's such a good idea to try and
yeah.
make sure that mobile data is available to people who find difficulty in paying for enough of it to make their lives work.
Yeah.
That's the basic aim, and however that's achieved, whether it's through something like this, a pooling of unused data, or sponsorship from business, or some kind of citizen human rights type argument to make it available to everyone. Who knows? But it's something that, when you start to think about it, it's almost a bigger problem and almost more restrictive in people's lives than the lack of devices is.
Yeah. Well, as it says there on the screen, 165 million gigabytes of unused data in the UK, and that was in July. That's if you can imagine that, and Paul's wife, in fact, made the videos for him, showing that in a picture. It's like the cafe. There's a Stan's Cafe does a pictures of, uses rice to kind of describe pictures of various things in the world. And it's like one of those where you imagine a tiny little pile of rice and then this huge mountain of rice. Rice seems to be becoming a theme on this show today. Um,
Rice is
where to show the amount of data that's not being used. I mean, people have, I have 40 gigs a month. I'm not using all of it. I'm sure others aren't using all of theirs and would be happy to donate it in the in the right structure. So I think that's one of the ones we have to
absolutely.
follow through this year and see how they get on.
The video is great. We'll not play it just now, but there
Mm.
I've shared the link to it there on the screen.
Yeah.
It's on
So
Paul Russell's own YouTube
YouTube. Yeah.
account channel, and it's called Citizen Sim: An Idea to Help Solve the Digital Poverty Crisis in the UK. And it's a lovely little 2-minute video, not even 2 minutes, that just concisely and very persuasively states the problem. Although he does leave Orkney and Shetland off his map of the UK, but I'm going to let him off for that because of his excellent work.
It's very very forgiving of you. Yeah. I mean, we highly recommend this one, and we will catch up with Paul in 2021 and see how he's getting on, because we have found some great ideas on this program, and it's good. It'll be good to kind of see how they're getting on a year or a few months after we had them on. We've time, I think, for a to cover a few more.
Three and a
Our
half minutes
next
left.
Yeah, one of our next guests was Cambola, who's the Wellness Coordinator and Employer Engagement Worker at ACP, the Family Wellbeing Centre in Sparkbrook, which is a business that it's a charity that I do some work with in Birmingham. They do all kinds of things. They help people with benefits advice, with finding new housing, with immigration advice. Yeah, there we have on screen the picture of all the staff. In fact, Cam wasn't in that picture, as she told us, but all the other members of staff are there, and they'll be delighted to see themselves on YouTube again. But yeah, they do all sorts of things. And during lockdown, they started or carried on some of the activities that they had been offering around wellness, cycling, healthy eating. They have a very active WhatsApp group. They send several messages out every day, encouraging people to eat healthily, to do healthy things, to take exercise. And I think, our physical and mental well-being has been as important, if not more important, during lockdown. And ACP have certainly encouraged that. And they're starting a new men's program in 2021. So for people who want to know more about that, contact ACP, the Family Wellbeing Centre in
It's a
Birmingham.
lovely
And
example. This is in my top 5.
mm, great.
Uh, it's a beautiful example of a very local initiative suddenly becoming completely visible to,
Mm,
to us all online,
yeah,
but still focusing on their core mission, which
yeah.
is to do good in their own community, to do
Well,
good things in their own
yeah,
community.
they took the opportunity to revamp their website during lockdown. Now it's really all bells and whistles, and also Cam was telling us that they were getting people tuning into their broadcasts, their Facebook lives, and so on from all across the world. They were in the tens of thousands from having like a very local audience. So it just shows the power of being online.
And that also, as I remember, was a theme from the Lancashire businesswomen as well. That
Yes.
not only were they able to serve the markets that they had traditionally aimed at, but they were finding through word of mouth and through other means, they were getting customers and interest from all over the world. And
Yeah.
it's quite interesting. It was quite interesting to me, I think, to see how things which are like ACP and that Lancashire Businesswomen's Group and various other things that we've covered, things that have essentially been very local. How
Mm.
will this exposure and interaction with other projects and with other places affect how local projects develop? It'll be interesting to see.
We'll see how that develops in 2021. We're about coming to the end of the show now, and I was saying to Sweyn at the beginning that I think Facebook Portal and Alexa are going to really come into their own in 2021, certainly for getting more people online. And we look forward to talking more about that and talk about the Facebook group that we're both part of now. And I've joined an Alexa group as well. So we hope to bring you more great stories in 2021.
I'm going to
But
order a portal.
Yes, I am as well.
Yeah.
Great. We can experiment.
We'll talk afterwards about which version, because apparently.
Yes, let's do that. Okay, but for now, thanks to everybody who's listened to us in 2020. Thanks to John Popham for setting up this program, which we both get a huge amount of enjoyment out
We
of.
do.
Greetings to his family and friends,
Yes.
and please,
Happy New
as
Year to
John would
everyone.
say, stay safe and stay
Stay
connected.
connected.
Thank you
Yes.
very much.